At this point, we will get to embark on the conversation on Nigeria, the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine and its distribution, as well as managing public confidence in the wake of the global crisis affecting the vaccine. Not forgetting the role of interagency collaboration in the fight against COVID-19. From our Abuja studio, we're now being joined by Dr. Tunji Funsho, Chairman of Rotary Club's Nigerian National Polioplus Committee. Welcome to the program, Dr. Funsho. It's good to have you on the morning show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you. Well, very quickly, let's start with polio. We're told that the war against polio in Nigeria has been won. What is the situation? Is that a sustainable achievement?
Well,
do you have any anxieties in the light of other developments with regard to COVID-19 and the public health situation in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, for bringing us, a reminder to the fact that, yes, we have been certified polio-free by WHO, having been now going to 5 years now without any single case of the wild polio virus in Nigeria. But we are not done yet because we still have the wild polio virus in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. And as long as there's a single case of the wild polio virus circulating anywhere in the world, no child anywhere in the world is safe. So we're now on a march to keep polio at zero in Nigeria. And the only way to do that is to ensure that we continue immunizing all vulnerable children, that is children below the age of 5, with the oral polio vaccine, until such a time that the world is certified polio-free. Only then can we take our eyes off the ball and have a good night's sleep with both eyes open. Currently, we sleep with just one eye open to ensure that the virus doesn't come back through the back door.
Yes, indeed, sir. You can never really rest on your laurels. But last year, we congratulated you on this show, and we were immensely proud of you, being selected as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2020. And it was all due to this fight against the polio disease. Can you tell us more? Because, we know that you postponed your well-deserved retirement to roll up your sleeves and ensure that Nigeria puts polio, consigns it to history. Can you give us more details about the efforts that you made?
Well, it's a collective effort. I just rode on the shoulder, of Rotarians around the world, numbering about 1.2 million. Even Rotarians in parts of the world that have long forgotten that they suffer from the wild polio virus and its devastating effects on children, particularly paralysis and in some cases death, continue to support the program by advocacy and also making funds available, for the project. We have come a long way from 35 years ago when we were having 50,000 cases every year around the world in 125 countries, to a situation where we just have 2 countries, and last year we had just 140 cases of the wild polio virus. But as I always say, 1 case of the wild polio virus is 1 case too much, because that one is a child who has been paralyzed, and we cannot afford any child to be further paralyzed. And how do we do it? We did it with the support of all stakeholders, the GPI partners, which include WHO, UNICEF, CDC, and also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and in recent years, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. And of course, the governments of the world. In the case of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, because as I always say, you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. Our role is a supportive role to ensure that we assist the government in carrying out appropriate interventions, which includes immunization of all children, and making sure that all the logistics that are expected to be made available, including communication, including cold chain system, and including provision of vaccines, are made available in adequate quantity, and that we have interventions that are of qualitative value so that we can get rid of the wild polio virus. And that, thanks to God, we're able to achieve such that we've not seen any case of wild polio virus since September 2016. And we'll continue ensuring that children get immunized. We'll continue having campaigns to bridge the gap between the expected level of routine immunization for the polio virus, which currently stands at less than 50% on the average in the country. But if you disaggregate those figures, you find that some parts of the country have just 10%, while some other parts have 85%. We need to ensure that we focus on those areas that are still performing below par, and also ensure that we strengthen our routine immunization infrastructure so that more and more children will follow the routine immunization route. In other words, when they're born, they get their vaccine, and they get 3 more vaccines of the wild polio, of the oral polio vaccine by the time they're 2 years old. That way, even if the wild virus, comes in contact with them, because they're immune to the virus, they will not succumb to the disease.
All right. Thank you so much for that insight, and thank you so much for all the work you've done as regards polio. Are there lessons to learn from the fight against polio with what we're currently facing, COVID-19? I want to talk about the vaccines. There's been a lot of negativity, anti-vaxxers campaign across board around this. How can we harmonize the voices and make them one to be able to fight COVID-19 once and for all?
I think, the difference between, polio eradication and COVID-19 pandemic is that, one has been around for thousands of years, and the pandemic just hit us out of the blues. I say that with caution because the epidemiology, community around the world, had foreseen that we may get a pandemic, pretty soon. Some countries are prepared adequately, but most countries of the world, didn't prepare adequately for something that actually had been predicted for at least a decade. In the case of polio, we were presumptuous, just like we're doing with COVID-19, that people will embrace the vaccine because it's something that is good, it's something that protects, life and limbs, and there should be no cause to try and convince anybody to take it. But as we saw with, the wild polio virus and the oral polio vaccine, there were a lot of misunderstanding and poor knowledge of what the vaccine is all about, what it does and what it doesn't do, such that we had rejection on some states, up to 7 states, around 2002, 2003, really stopped immunization totally for about 2-3 years, which led to a very sharp rise within 2 to 3 years of the number of cases of paralysis, due to the wild polio virus. We're seeing the same thing now. We've always had people who, for different reasons, have been against vaccination. It's not just, polio or even now COVID. We've had resurgence of measles, for instance, in parts of Europe and United States, because some people are linking it to a disease for which there's no evidence. And the same thing we're facing now with the COVID, vaccine, particularly the brand that we're using in Nigeria, linking some deaths, particularly the issues with clotting with the vaccine. And I'm delighted that in the last few days, more light has been shed on that by the scientific community in Europe, that there's no link whatsoever between the vaccine and, those episodes of clotting. Indeed, statistics have shown that those level of clotting is even less than the level of clotting that was being recorded pre-COVID-19 vaccination. You see, countries around the world, including Nigeria, have, what they call pharmacovigilance, either council or committees or commission within their drug administration. Like the NAFDAC in Nigeria has a pharmacovigilance, committee where you report any side effects from anything that is under their purview, and by that I mean drugs and also vaccines. And this, goes into an international pool of information that allows either the country individually to say, we are seeing a level, of side effects, that is not acceptable, so we are going to withdraw this drug or this vaccine. And this pool around the world, goes into WHO database, and the experts in WHO will look at those figures and make a pronouncement, just like they've recently made a pronouncement on the AstraZeneca vaccine, that there's no evidence, to show a causal linkage between some of the reported side effects that is threatening people and the vaccine itself. And they can only come to that kind of decision based on data that they have received from those countries. So there is no doubt in my mind that from the level of the figures we are seeing and the data that we have so far, that the COVID-19 vaccine is quite safe. Most of the side effects that are being reported have been reported during clinical trials. I think part of the areas that we presumed again is that people know what it takes to bring a vaccine to the market. I think if people know that it's a very, very rigorous process, then they will be a little bit more, assured that these vaccines will not get to the market except they are safe. On the average, yes.
Well, Dr. Funsho, we'll take a break in about 2 minutes, but before we do so, I would like to ask you, is Rotary Club Nigeria involved in any way in this national immunization program with regard to COVID-19? And as a cardiologist yourself, I mean, you are in the medical space, do you have any concerns that not enough attention is being paid to other diseases, other health issues as a result of what looks like a global over-concentration on COVID-19, particularly within the last 1 year?
Yes, sadly, there has been a distraction by this pandemic. But you see, it's presenting in a very, dramatic, fashion. People still die from other diseases, particularly in advanced countries, cardiovascular diseases and all non-infectious diseases. And in Nigeria, mostly infectious diseases, particularly in young people, primarily because our primary healthcare infrastructure, is not up to par. So one is concerned about that. But you see, COVID-19, it's a very dramatic disease in the way it presents and in the way it kills. We have seen that around the world now we have almost 3 million people who have died as a result of COVID-19 infection. So we need to get rid of it. If we get rid of it, we now can refocus and put our resources in ensuring that these other diseases are also taken care of.
Well, I asked you about Rotary. How Rotary is involved in the immunization program. But we need to take a short break. Dr. Funsho, we need to take a short break. When we return, you can respond to that. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our guest is still Dr. Tunji Funsho, Chairman of Rotary Club's Nigerian National Polioplus Committee. Dr. Funsho, thank you for staying with us. I'd asked you the question about what Rotary Club Nigeria, Rotary Club International is doing with regard to COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Because of our decades of experience with polio eradication efforts, we have a groundswell of experience, a huge baggage of experience in tackling some of the issues we're having now. Principally, the issues of convincing people about the safety of the vaccine. And our strength in Rotary, even with polio, apart from funding, was with advocacy, because Rotarians are present in every nook and cranny of the country. They are members of their community. Their community respect them. They have good contact with the local leaders, both political leaders, traditional leaders, and also religious leaders, and also community opinion, leaders and molders. So it's quite easy for us, to get right down from the national level to the grassroots to disseminate the right information so that people will appreciate the purpose of what we're doing and the safety and efficacy, of vaccines in general. In our own pursuit, the vaccine which was oral polio, vaccine. And in the case of COVID vaccine, we have assured ourselves, that the COVID-19 vaccine we are using in this country is safe. The level of side effects that are being reported do not exceed the number of side effects that was anticipated as a result of the trials that were done. A lot of people, I was saying this earlier, a lot of people don't realize that it takes, a lot of rigorous oversight work by independent panel of scientists from across the world. We have a Nigerian on this panel, we have Indians, we have Chinese, we have Americans, we have Europeans. So these are independent people who are pulled together by WHO to actually follow the evolution of vaccines, lay down the guidelines from the ethical point of view, and also at every stage, they monitor. They also look at the data that is collected from phase 1. If it goes right, they give licensing to go to phase 2. If it goes right, they go to phase 3. Phase 3 is the final phase, which now takes in more people. The AstraZeneca vaccine is not too different from Pfizer vaccine, for instance, because they've taken in approximately in the stage 3 trial between 30 and 40,000 volunteers. And during these trials, all these side effects, are looked for and looked at and analyzed. Are they really related to the vaccine? Are they more than you expected in the population at that particular point in time? And with that, they will come to the verdict to give what we now have for most of the vaccine is what we call temporary, licensing use from WHO or from the relevant authorities in different countries, like in Nigeria is NAFDAC. And once they give the go-ahead, then you can use it. And in the process of actually using it, there's what we call post-deployment evaluation. In other words, whilst this is going on, NAFDAC is looking eagle-eyed at some of these reports of side effects. As I mentioned earlier, the pharmacovigilance group is charged with that responsibility. So that at any point in time, if NAFDAC is convinced based on the evidence before them that the vaccine is causing more harm than good, they'll put a stop to the vaccine. But so far, nothing like that has happened. And the European countries that started the panic gradually themselves are coming back to use the AstraZeneca vaccine. Because what they said was a pause until they satisfy themselves that there's no, causal effect of the COVID vaccine and some of these major side effects, particularly the clotting defects that were discovered. And all the scientific groups, all the relevant drug, control groups in the countries in Europe and in EU as a whole, have come out categorically in the last 2 days to say that there's no relationship between those side effects that cause them to stop the use of AstraZeneca and the vaccine itself. I need to mention that of the almost 360 million doses of the vaccine that has been used across the world, not just AstraZeneca, vaccines in general for COVID-19, not a single death have been reported as a result of this vaccine. Whereas COVID-19 itself, as I mentioned earlier, has killed about 3 million people across the world. So we talk about cost benefit. The benefit of
vaccination
far outweighs some of these risks that have
They certainly do, sir.
a cause of concern
They certainly do, sir. What is your assessment of Gavi's response so far? Because it's been reported that Gavi has been hampered by underfunding and bilateral agreements with certain developed countries going off and trying to hoard vaccines. And it's sad that it's been recorded that Gavi has been able to procure 1.1 billion doses of vaccine, whereas developed countries have amassed 4.6 billion doses. So that underfunding issue is one thing, but there's also been a criticism of Gavi that they're not doing enough to empower middle and lower income countries to actually produce their own vaccines with regards to infrastructure and intellectual property rights. What's your assessment of the whole response?
I'm not aware, of the details, of the main objectives of Gavi. What I know about Gavi is that they have been a major force for providing, even long before the COVID-19 pandemic, they have been funding vaccines. All routine immunization vaccines fall under their purview to developing countries, such that the routine immunization system doesn't collapse because of lack of funding. Now, Gavi is supporting this program now. Without Gavi, we may not have gotten most of the vaccines we have in Africa. Because vaccine, I'm sure you're aware that there's a new lexicon they call vaccine politics. The richer part of the world were more proactive. That 9 months, 10 months ago, they actually started having contracts with manufacturers to buy these vaccines, paid in advance. So they have locked down a lot of the production well in advance. And Gavi, that is supported, by governments around the world and other philanthropic organizations, is a saving grace, as far as I know, for Africans. Whether they supposed to be involved with assisting, developing countries, I'm not aware.
Dr. Funsho, we would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed for your insight.